I bought a hot rod car just to leave you behind. Took some little white pills to take you off of my mind. I threw your shit out of my house. I'm keeping the cat. I'm going out and throwing out the welcome mat. Now I'm stepping up the curb in my brand new kicks, leaving you in the dirt with your dirty tricks. I bought a new queen bed that I don't have to share. I got a new wig to get you out of my hair. So long, little Miss Sunshine.
Gotta love that lyric, right? I didn't realize there was an S word in there that had to be bleeped. Actually, when I pick out the music for these shows, what I typically do is, on most services, Spotify, Tidal, there'll be a little E there if there's anything explicit. I don't know why they put E when it obviously begins with X, but if there's anything explicit, so I just don't even listen to that song because that means we're gonna have to edit it. I make exceptions here and there, but this one didn't have an E, so I didn't. She sings really fast. I didn't hear it, but it's fine because Dylan Ray's handled it. All right, it's Ask or Tell Me Anything. The number, it's important to know the number if you want to call, 888-720-9677. If you're a little bit more, I'm going to say alphanumeric, 888-720-WNPR. Call up about anything, any old thing that's on your mind right now. All right, so here is calling us from beautiful Weetog is Bruce. Bruce from Weetog. Hi, Bruce.
Hi, Colin. I'm calling with some good news. We can always use good news. And today I bring good news to the parents of kids who will be heading back to college later this month, specifically kids who want to major in art history. Their parents are probably pleading with them, why, Kelly, why? Fearing that an art history major will never get a job that pays a living wage. But the good news is that an art history major can get a job with their local highway department and still be connected to the world of art. You know that crew that drizzles long, looping strands of hot tar randomly all into a side street? With a little expert guidance, that becomes, a giant salute to Jackson Pollock.
Or it could be a Soloist thing, too. It could be one long line of tar poured at random, and the whole work of art would be that set of instructions. As conceptual art, it could be done over and over again by different people.
That's interesting, because I thought the Soloist would be that half mile of milled highway with perfectly parallel corduroy-like grooves with a little touch in there. Little TLC, it becomes like a standard size Soloist installation.
Yeah, but I wouldn't overemphasize his focus on symmetry or order, because there are Soloist compositions with names like 138 3-inch lines drawn at random. And then some graphic technicians have to come in and just do that. So they aren't all these beautiful little triangles inside triangles inside triangles.
All right. Yep. Good point.
Yeah. But you're saying, it's really more how you're thinking about the job you're doing.
Well, and then, best of all is an art history graduate can put on one of those reflective vests and hold that sign on a tall pole that says slow on one side and stop on the other. Yeah. And they can cosplay American Gothic by Grant Wood.
Or it's performance art, too. You could just say, I was doing a performance art for, 2 years in North Carolina, and I was really hot, and the tar kept melting on my feet. All right, so I get where you're going with this, Bruce. And, it's how you look at the job you're doing. All right, we're going to move from Bruce to Don from Greenwich. Hi, Don.
Hi, Colin. Thought I'd kick us off on a serious note today, baseball. I heard your show a few weeks ago, and I admit I didn't hear the whole show, but I believe it was an interview with an author of a book that proposed certain counterfactuals to various things, including sports and the sports including baseball. How would baseball change if it were played not 162 times a year, but 17 times like the NFL or some other lower number? How would that change the game? And in the discussion among your panelists that followed, I didn't hear the two things that I consider the most important and quintessential changes to baseball that would happen if you did that counterfactual, i.e. played it 17 times or even 20 or 30 times a year instead of 162. So one of them concerns hitting and one of them concerns pitching. Hitting is the kind of thing that you can do absolutely perfectly, hit the ball on the nose and make it out. So, and that's bad. But you've done nothing wrong. You've done everything right. Over the course of 100, the reason there's so many games is eventually that all evens out. You can get a blue hit. You get a dribbler that goes for a base hit. So the chance aspect of it evens out over the long haul. Second thing is, if your team has a dominant pitcher who is just going to win 95% of the games that he goes out and pitches, that's great if you're only paid 17 times a year. He can pitch every game. That will not be the same as playing another team 3, 4, 5 times in a row and having to face their number 2, number 3, number 4 starters, in which case, things even out. So the shortened season with the dominant pitcher is not, in a sense, is not a team sport. It's like your guy is going to go out there and, your pitcher is going to kind of win the game for you most of the time. So I think those are two very basic changes that would take place to baseball. And I didn't hear anybody on your show talk about those specific things.
Well, first of all, let me just say this, that I think your points are interesting, although what they sort of are is, how can I describe this? You're describing the current conditions of baseball as kind of priors from which it would be perilous or undesirable to depart. And so, yes, if you think it's good that Walker Buehler pitches, every 4 or 5 days, whether or not he can throw strikes. Yeah, I mean, and there is a certain poignance to that, right? I mean, so I'm a Red Sox fan. I'm going to do it. So, obviously,
yeah, me too.
So Crochet is terrific, and if he were the only Red Sox starter, the Red Sox would have a tremendous pitching staff. They'd have Crochet as their starter, and they'd have maybe Chapman and one other person, as relievers, and that would be a tremendous pitching staff. Except it wouldn't be a pitching staff, and there is a kind of poignance to watching Walker, and also you get to go Buehler at the TV set from time to time when Walker Buehler is pitching. But there's a kind of poignance to watching Walker Buehler attempt to locate the strike zone, and it's arguably a very different experience from watching Crochet just mow people down. So there's so if I were making your argument, I think the question is, what's the qualitative advantage? And I think there is a qualitative advantage to seeing pitchers at different levels, because otherwise it just becomes Hector versus Achilles, right? Is my ace better than your ace? Slightly better than your ace. Whereas
I'm talking about a qualitative advantage. I'm just talking, they're two different things.
Yes.
It wouldn't be baseball if Crochet could start every game. It would be the Crochet team goes out and wins 95% of the games.
Well, no, because it's like, football, you have the same quarterback every game unless he gets hurt. So, I mean, that doesn't make it not football.
Very different sport.
Yeah.
But the quarterback can't win the game by himself. The pitcher kind of can.
Yeah, well. I think Crochet has found that not to be the case early in the season. But I take your point, and it's a beautiful point, and I endorse it, and I endorse you, and I appreciate you. And we are going to have to move on here, but we're going to maybe not talk about sports for at least one call. We're going to go to Chris in Avon. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
Hi.
I could go on about the qualitative experience of watching two state agency softball teams where the pitcher is a 75-year-old woman who can't run around the bases, but I will leave that behind.
Can I tell you what, you've triggered a memory in me, so we have to talk. So one of my proudest memories as, a pretty average or below average adult softball player, we did play a state agency one time. I used to play for the Hartford Courant team. The Hartford Courant team took the whole thing very seriously. They had some really, really good players, and the guy who ran the whole thing, he was all about, just winning. And we were playing some state agency that really did have like a 75-year-old person pitching, and kind of, except for the shortstop, nobody in the field who really had much of a clue. And so the guy who ran the Courant team would go, "We got to use this to build momentum for the next game." And I thought, are you kidding me? And so I got up to the plate and I said to the umpire, because now it's like 15-1 or something. I said to the umpire, "What do you give me if I could bounce one to the shortstop?" And the umpire said, "I will give you anything if you will do that." And so I did. I bounced one to the shortstop and he threw me out, and I was never prouder as a softball player. Anyway, let's get to what you really want to talk about.
Good times. There two related cultural things I recommend. One is the Terror, which is a TV show that came out in 2018. It's a limited series. I think they have 3 seasons, but the first season is about the Franklin expedition, where they were trying to find the Northwest Passage. It's a historical event, and they disappeared. And the second recommendation is the Ministry of Time, which is a novel that came out last year, where one of the guys on this expedition is the central character in this novel, where he's been snatched by a time machine and brought to the near future for a reason I won't go into.
Yeah, don't tell anybody. So these two products are, in terms of their creators, unrelated to one another. The Terror and the Mystery of Time, but they happen to overlap on this one figure, right?
Yep, and it's a great show to watch when it's hot, because everybody is stuck in the ice and they're freezing to death.
What would be our streaming options? How would we find the Terror?
I think it's on Amazon Prime somewhere.
Yeah.
It can be found. Just for some reason, it's been bubbling to the top of my streaming algorithm. But it has a great cast. Jared Harris is kind of the main character, but who's the son of Richard Harris.
No, we like Jared Harris. We like him.
And very good characterization. It gets into, there's a good Atlantic article that talks about this show that when it came out, and talking about how it's a shining example of survivor horror.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to check this out. I have I have 111 hours of the Billy Joel documentary left to watch. But when I get done with that, I will check out the Terror. It sounds very, very interesting. Okay, I'm going to take maybe one more call, and it's Jay in East Hartford. Hi, Jay.
Hey, how you doing, Colin?
Good.
So back to sports. I am absolutely livid that the state of Connecticut is so inept that they cannot keep the friggin' Connecticut Sun Women's Basketball Pro League in the state. The state of Connecticut, that is the biggest pro women's basketball state ever, is losing their team to Boston. And it has the laundry list of normal excuses. We're in between two big markets, which is nonsense. Newark has an NHL team, okay? So being too close to something and too many people is a nonsensical thing. Move them to Hartford. And the fact that, by the way, that we can't get our Hartford Civic Center to be a regular, the New Haven Hartford market is bigger. Media market is bigger than probably 10 cities that have professional sports. And that doesn't include Springfield, which is 20 miles away from Hartford. Okay. The fact we can't keep the Sun is mind-boggling.
It is. I mean, look, it was always kind of a shame that it started out with the casino. That was sort of the wrong place for it. But the casino has resources that other enterprises don't have, which is also why so many of the concerts you may want to see or hear are going to casinos. And, of course, the XL Center, which is called something else now, but I forget what.
Yeah, the People's Bank.
Is it called the
Arena
People's
or
Bank?
whatever. Yeah, something like that.
Whatever it's called. I suppose People's Bank spent a lot of money on that, so we should probably get it right so they don't feel so bad. Yeah. Yes, calling it the whatever bank center is probably not what they're hoping for. Anyway, I mean, look, professional sports in Connecticut have a very, very rocky relationship. You would think, however, the WNBA would be something where we could be the winners. I think the other question that I have, and it is the People's Bank Arena, by the way, I'm being told. The question that I have is how involved when you say the state of Connecticut, do you mean the people of Connecticut or do you mean the state government? Everybody. Okay.
The government, yes. Listen, this is what I want my tax dollars to go to. I want an arena in Hartford that can actually have events that people actually care about, and an NHL team or a WNBA team or whatever. Like, that's what I want my tax dollars to go to. I don't care. Like this nonsense about, Connecticut's superpower is its ability to crap on itself. And that, we're, with an attitude like that, that's why we don't have that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are questions about how good we are at supporting professional sports franchises. And I also think, we have to face the fact that when government gets involved here on behalf of private businesses, the people wind up footing bills that they shouldn't have to. And Hartford is a great example of this. I mean, everybody loves the Yard Goats. I get it. Everybody loves Dunkin' Donuts Park, whatever it's called. But, that sits on the books of the city of Hartford, one of the poorest cities in America, and they lose money every year.
One example before I get hung up on, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so the only difference between Raleigh and Hartford at the time that the Whalers left was that Raleigh was getting a brand new arena and we weren't.
Mm-hmm.
And who funded that arena? The state of North Carolina. Every other place will fund that stuff except Connecticut. We have a fainting spell when it comes to, we need to fund like an arena for the people.
Well, I mean, first of all, it's not true that other places haven't refused to do stuff like this. And it is an enormous...
And they don't have teams.
It's a public... yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, if what you think government is supposed to do is give you a sports team that you can go and watch, then you're probably going to... You and I are probably...
The arena.
Build an arena where you can go watch a sport. I don't happen to think that's one of the main functions of government. I just don't.
It isn't.
I mean,
it's something I want them to do.
Right, but government doesn't always do what. I mean, I don't want the government to spend so much money on defense, but they do it anyway. So, I mean, I think there is a rational conversation, and I also understand that I am a little bit too hard-edged on the other side of this. I mean, even we had Andrew Zimbalist on recently. He's an economist who's really looked at all this stuff, and even he is persuaded that some of these huge public to private transfers of money ultimately do create some economic stimulus. But I really would like these sports owners to pay for their damn stadiums. A lot of these people are very wealthy. Very wealthy.
Here's the thing. I agree 100%.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that other places don't.
Mm-hmm.
And we're never going to get that stuff. In 1970, Indianapolis was Hartford. Now they host Super Bowls. That's the difference.
Yeah. The other part of this is, though, like for Connecticut and for Hartford, for example, one of the things that disturbs me, and Duncan is a pretty good example of this. If you want a baseball stadium where you can take your kids and you can have birthday parties, and whatever you're going to do, great. But don't forget the city. The city is actually paying the debt service on this stadium. And the money that they get as part of the deal isn't enough to cover the debt service. So don't forget that this very poor city is doing this. So don't forget about Hartford in other ways, like maybe make it an effort to go into Hartford and have a dinner once in a while or something like that.
Well, no, but all those things can happen at the same time, though.
Oh, no, I understand. But a lot of suburbanites...
exclusively happens in lieu of the other.
Yeah, but a lot of suburbanites really do kind of spit on Hartford. And then they think, oh, well, the baseball, I like it. I'm not saying you do. I'm not saying you do. But, I mean, believe me, I've 32 years now hosting radio shows. I've heard it all. And God knows when Luke Broden was mayor of Hartford, he'd go around to the suburbs and say, we have to make common cause about stuff, and our destinies are more intertwined.
Turn their nose.
Yeah, he was lucky to get out of there without being tarred and feathered for suggesting that Simsbury owes Hartford anything. So I think that's another important part of it, that there needs to be some kind of complex understanding of what the public good is, and if the public good includes you going to watch a women's basketball game, good. Let's figure out how to pay for that without sacrificing everything else. Let's look at it more holistically.
You don't have to sacrifice everything else. There are ways to do things that actually work to the benefit of all those things. It doesn't have to be one or the other. They're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, no, I would agree. But if they will only mutually benefit one another if you go in with a plan to do that, and if people have goodwill and understand really what's being asked of our public coffers. Anyway, I got to grab a break here. We will take a break.
Thank you.
It's been great to talk to you. Thank you so much for listening and for talking, and we will come back after this.
Never feel like it's enough, but when time.
Support for Connecticut Public Radio comes from People's Bank, where a local team of cash management professionals is there to provide solutions for businesses large and small. Learn more at bankatpeoples.com/pbbusiness.
Facts don't care about your feelings. Remember when our second president, John Adams, said that? Of course you don't, because he didn't. But PragerU would have you believe he did. And it looks like the Trump administration is favoring PragerU's AI slop edutainment while defunding PBS. But what the heck is PragerU? On Today Explained.
This afternoon at 3:30.
When Hurricane Katrina hit 20 years ago, it broke a criminal justice system in New Orleans that was already dysfunctional before the storm.
The entire court system had collapsed. The files and all the evidence were under 4 feet of water.
But Katrina also cleared the way for change. I'm Ari Shapiro. A broken system and the people who worked to fix it. On the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Listen this afternoon at 4. Support comes from Kennedy and Perkins Opticians. Support comes from the Stowe Center for Literary Activism in Hartford, celebrating the 2025 Stowe Prize for Literary Activism winner Percival Everett for his novel James, September 17th, with a free public program. Visit stowecenter.org.
Can't let nothing stop us now. Unstoppable.
I was getting all swept up, and I was feeling unstoppable momentarily. Now I feel very stoppable now. But I was just infected with excitement there. All right, let's go to Mike from Woodbury. Kevin from West Hartford also wants to talk about the Connecticut Sun, the basketball team. The actual Sun is still here. It didn't leave. Here's Mike from Woodbury. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Colin. So I just got back from Ireland, a trip to Ireland, and I'm of Irish heritage, as I know you are. And me and my friends started in Dublin, which of course is great. You know, the Guinness pubs, Trinity, the Book of Kells. But then we went up north. We went up to Belfast and Derry, and I think I'm probably more aware of the Troubles than most people. I've read a lot of books. I've seen the movies. I watched the TV series, Say Nothing, and read the book. But it seemed like, well, it's ancient history. It happened. It's over. But when you go up there, it's totally still in your face. I mean, there's huge and this is like not stuff that's been sitting there for 20 years. I mean, they upkeep it. I mean, there's all these gardens with memorials, and the language is so vicious. These people were brutally murdered, but on both sides, and the wall is still there dividing, the sectarian neighborhoods, the Catholics and for the Protestants, and it's almost like, God, it wouldn't take much, a little spark to start this whole thing over again. That's the way it feels, at least when you're there.
My experience was that was very much the case with Derry. With Derry, it felt like it was the 1980s, just maybe a little bit past them or something like that. But it was a miasma. You could really kind of feel that. I found Belfast. I mean, it depends where you go in Belfast, but this is maybe, I don't know, 7 years ago, something like that. I found Belfast to be kind of a hip international city, at least, the kind of downtown areas, the developed areas. The food was much more interesting and more cosmopolitan than Irish food used to be. And I thought Belfast was just a fun, interesting place to go around. If you want to go looking for those memories, of course, it really wasn't all that long ago, and it was an unbelievably horrific thing, and it's probably not surprising that there's still anger. And I think it's also, I'm kind of hoping to go to Vietnam next year, and my understanding is you go to Vietnam and everybody's very sort of they're over it, or at least for all intents and purposes in interactions with Americans that are over it. But it's harder to get over it when it's your neighbors, when it's the people whose family members and whose offspring you're still living around. But I don't know. I'm hopeful. I don't know what's going on in Derry, but it's exactly the way that you just put it. I didn't feel that way so much in Belfast. I thought Belfast, I don't know. I thought it was sort of like a Scandinavian city or something.
Well, that's the way it started. We stayed in the Europa Hotel, which is beautiful, and the British Open had just happened, and all the golfers were there, from the British Open. But then we took they call a black taxi tour, and this driver was he started with the Vikings, and he worked his way up for 3 hours. Yeah. And this guy was really, really passionate about, he had grown up in the neighborhood. He said, as a kid, I couldn't go out and play, because, there was you could easily get blown up or shot. I mean, I guess maybe that's probably why my impression was so strong, because this guy was really great, but he thought both sides were horrible.
Yeah, I think Belfast is a place where if you want to get into an argument with somebody, you could probably find somebody to get into an argument with. But I think most of the time, what they are trying to do, I think pretty successfully, is be a modern city, and that history is there. It doesn't make any sense to pretend it's not there. Including the Vikings. We did a whole show about the Vikings. They were all over the place. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. And I don't know. I'll say one last thing. When we were there, we got into a conversation with a guy who was I think sort of bartender / host at a restaurant. And he was from Dublin. And he said he moved up to Belfast. And we asked why. And he said, people are here a little bit more honest about who they are. He goes, in Dublin, everybody's trying to charm you. There was fawning over you like a coach dog and trying to be, he said, up here, people, they're a little bit more direct about like your cab driver wasn't going to gloss over anything. And there's something to be said for that too, right? To say, okay, yes, enjoy the food, enjoy the views, and enjoy the ocean. But here's some other stuff that happens that we haven't entirely. Right. I think that's okay, Mike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I agree. But boy, I tell you, the Antrim coast. I don't know if you got up there. That is beautiful, and the Giants Causeway,
all that stuff. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. Now, what you need to do is you need to start reading some Adrian McKinty novels.
Yes, I have a few. I've read one. Yeah. I gotta delve into them.
The Sean Duffy ones are really, really great in terms of just Belfast culture. They'll make you want to go right back and go to the. Right. In fact, McKinty's sister owns a pub, I think in Carrickfergus or someplace like that. So, anyway, thanks for your call. I really appreciate it. And just switching gears way away from Mike, we're going to go to a guy named Kevin. But he's actually not interested in talking about Ireland. Hi, Kevin.
Good afternoon, Colin. How are you?
Good.
I'm actually, since we already spoke about the sun, I'm prepared to pivot. And I actually was wondering if you could tell us about a time from your childhood where you felt proud of yourself.
My childhood feeling proud of myself.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. I kind of wasn't brought up that way.
To feel proud of yourself?
Yeah, no, I wasn't really I was brought up to feel, my parents were very, very, my parents loved me, but they were very controlling people, and they were kind of concerned constantly that I wasn't working hard enough, wasn't achieving enough, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm drawing I did things that made them proud, but when was I proud of myself? It took me a long time to be self-actualized enough, I think, to be proud of myself. I will say this. This is a terrible example, but by the time I was a senior in what passed for my high school, I went to a boys' day school. Well, you're from West Hartford. I went to Kingswood when it was a boys' school.
Got you.
Yeah. I sort of started to become the person that I was going to become. I was the editor-in-chief of the newspaper. It was a really good newspaper, won lots of awards. And I kind of wrote about real things. I had a column, and I would write about real things. I had editorials, things that people didn't really want me to write about, things that upset the image that Kingswood wanted to have of itself. Which I thought was important. Let's talk about these things. I don't know if I was really proud of myself exactly, but I do think that right around that time, and I had a Smith Corona manual typewriter, And I think when my friend Steve Metcalf first started playing the piano, he thought, "Oh, this is what I'm supposed to do," because like he just knew how to play the piano right away. And I don't know, my Smith Corona blue manual typewriter was like, "Oh, I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to type on this." But I don't know, proud of myself. That's an interesting question. I'll mull it over. Maybe, I don't know. Do you have a good example from your own life? When were you proud of yourself as a kid?
I was afraid you'd ask. I think, and by the way, I stole this question from Wild Card with Michelle Martin. But
which I think is really good. I like Wild Card with Michelle Martin. I like that format.
Me too.
Yeah, I think it's good.
So
it's Rachel Martin. Yeah, Rachel Martin.
Oh, Rachel Martin. I'm sorry. So, I mean, I'm similar to you. I feel like very much like humility was or is like respected in my family. So I wouldn't want to go around feeling proud of myself, right?
Yeah.
But I did, when I was in 5th grade, win this I wasn't a standout student. My report card always said easily distract self and others. But I won this academic achievement award in 5th grade. And I remember watching somebody else win the award when I was in 1st grade and thinking, there's no way I'm ever going to win that.
Yeah.
And there I was winning it completely speechless. So that was kind of cool.
Okay, so you've helped me come up with mine now. Now if Rachel Martin ever contacts me, I'll be ready. But she won't pull that card. She'll pull something else. But and this is a fine thing for other people to call up too, like a time when you were proud of yourself when you were growing up. So also when I was a senior in high school, my parents had really, really been very strict with me about academics and stuff like that, and they felt it was just essential that I get into the college of either my choice or their choice, depending on what day it was. And they didn't want me to do things that they thought would distract me. And one of those was to act in plays. And I'd acted in plays, as a freshman and a sophomore, and then they just forbade it. And you've got to concentrate more. So I got into college. I got into the college of my choice kind of early. And I just said to them, I'm going to be in a play. And they were producing You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. And the guy who was going to play Linus had dropped out. And so I went, and so my friend who was playing Snoopy said, go in, come on, audition. So I auditioned for Linus, and I played Linus. And I had turned into this kind of cynical, hard-edged person, I think. A boys' school is not a great place to develop your feelings and your self-examination or anything like that. But this was this very forgiving environment, and the person who was directing was a young woman named Jan Gingold, who really kind of helped me discover my own emotions a little bit, which I think had been submerged for about 4 years, and connect me with a lot of sort of, I don't know, things that you associate with being a kid that I had kind of denied myself. Yeah. And I do remember that there was a scene in the play where I had figured out, and we took the play on tour. We did it in lots of locations around Connecticut. But where I'd figured out how to get this certain kind of laugh from the audience. And the best part about it was I was alone on stage, so the cast didn't know what I was doing. They would just hear this huge laugh, and then I would walk off stage, and they would run up to me and go, "What is it you're doing?" And I would go, "Oh, nothing," because it wasn't anything I said or anything like that. I think I was really proud of myself about that I could make the audience laugh just with a certain little look and a laugh to get them laughing. And I felt also like I was kind of recovering who I really was. So it's a really good question, Kevin. Thank you so much for it's not okay that you poached it from Rachel Martin. Is like a natural resource. She's like Yellowstone or something. She's there to help all of us. She's there. I sound like I'm doing like a pledge drive thing. Rachel Martin is a natural resource, like Yellowstone. She has bears walking all over her all the time. All right, so I think what we'll do is we'll take a break. We got some calls coming in. They need to be gone over by our excellent calls team. We will be discussing the calls team and everything else on the other side of this.
Rage on a plane, I feel like I'm in a cage. It maybe sounds a little strange, I know, but there's just one way I still love to go. So now I'm here, but it seems to be that I tried to run, but the blues came and found me here on memory lane. So it's back the way I came to grab the next train, grab the next train, grab the next train, grab
Support for Connecticut Public Radio comes from CT State Community College, Gateway. Please consider a charitable gift to the Gateway Community College Foundation. gatewayfdn.org/donate.
I'm Peter O'Dowd.
Eat my shorts.
In the early 1990s, American kids idolized Bart Simpson.
Kids saw Bart and they were like, I want to do everything like him. I want to be mischievous like him. And that was enough to scare adults.
How 36 years of The Simpsons changed American culture and TV. Next time on Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon at 2.
Life's a lot sometimes. That's why Connecticut Public Radio and NPR are here to give you the facts, the full story, and a little clarity when the world feels upside down. We're not here to add to the noise. We're here to help you make sense of it. So take a breath, stick around. We've got this.
Support comes from Better Built Basements, offering custom finished basements and complete home remodeling solutions with a focus on value, quality, and service. No obligation, in-home consultations available. Learn more at betterbuiltbasements.com.
Every town has its ups and downs. Sometimes ups outnumber the downs, but not in Nottingham. I'm inclined to believe if we weren't so down, we'd up and leave. We'd up and fly if we had wings for flying. Can't you see the tears we're crying? Can't there be some happiness for me? Not in Nottingham.
All right, that's, of course, Roger Miller. And the thing that's interesting about that is that I didn't pick it out. It was picked out by our technical producer, Dylan Reyes, the maestro, who is roughly 1/3 my age. But who would know enough to pick out a Roger Miller tune, because he's also roughly my age. I mean, psychologically, emotionally, musically. He is both, 1/3 my age and my actual age at the same time. It's very impressive. All right, so we should also see some thank yous. On the phones today, Isaac Moss, who, of course, is the mastermind behind the Isaac Moss Report. I don't know if there's anything this week about Rachel Martin in there, but and also Robin Doyen-Aiken, our boss, is in there, making sure everything goes well. And this episode is being produced by Jonathan McPants. So that, I think, is everybody. And if it's not everybody, somebody will tell me who else everybody is. Let's go back to your phone calls. Our number, 888-720-9677. I should do one of those Rachel Martin card things, shouldn't I? Like, people will call up, I pick a card, and I'll ask them the question. Let's work on that for next week. Let's see if we can... Is Rachel selling those sets of cards yet? I mean, if she's not, she's missing an incredible merchandising opportunity. All right, so let's go back. Okay, we have an update. We love updates. We love follow-up. So we're going to go to Tony in Noang. Hi, Tony.
Hey, Colin, how are you doing?
Just fine.
Yeah, great. Great show. I was going to call. I talked to Robin last week. I waited too long because my daughter got married on Saturday, and I was going to, maybe thought you might have some. We're about the same age and everything. I thought you might have some ideas for like a interesting little toast and stuff. But she said call back today, after the wedding, and it was a great wedding. I mean, my daughter was beautiful. Her older sister was maid of honor, and she was also, it was the weather was perfect. They did it was an outdoor yard wedding down near Harkness, and they did Lord of the Rings theme, Bilbo Baggins party. But he had his 111th birthday party, I guess, right before they left for the on their journey. I'm sure you know. I know more now than I did know. It's been a while. I haven't read the books.
He left on his journey, and then Frodo and everybody else continued to live out their lives for a while. And then Gandalf came back and got them on their journey, which then they wind up connecting with him. But yes,
exactly.
I would have been really popular at this party, at this wedding, and I almost never would say that. Like, this is the first time I've ever said in my life, if I'd been at that wedding, I would have been really popular, but I think I probably would have. And that sounds great.
I feel really bad now. I would have tossed an invitation last
totally
week,
should have invited
who
me.
knows?
Yeah. And so now, as you know, there is federal legislation called TIPA, the Toast Information Privacy Act, that does, in fact, protect the privacy of wedding toasts. But you are at liberty if you'd like to share. Did you go Tolkien in your toast? Did you,
I didn't. I didn't feel like, I felt there were too many people there that were so into Tolkien that I would slip up and I was really upset. So I didn't want to chance.
You could have run it by me. You could have run it by me. I would have said,
okay. See, that's the problem. Well, next time we'll do it. The next big wedding, which hopefully not coming up in the near future, but I think we'll be around a little longer. Yeah, I focused pretty generally on, I just felt blessed. I felt blessed that, and that's it. I was, thinking when I was going to call today, with everything going on in the world, which I've been, hanging my head against the wall about, it was such a relief to just have real life, something happy, something go on that, it makes you feel like, well, maybe it won't all just go up in smoke in the next couple years here, but so I kind of threw that out there. I don't know if anybody.
I bet you it was nice. Yeah, like Mordor is no longer theoretical. We're kind of getting a good taste of what it's like. But yeah, no, I bet you it was a great toast, and it was done with love.
We had a Mordor sign actually. Yeah. We had a Mordor sign. And we were trying to figure out just exactly where the White House was to try to line it up. But, so I think we're, general direction. Anyway.
All right. Listen, it sounds great. Thanks for the update. And if anybody wants to call, I actually like Kevin's idea. And actually, Doug is going to tie into this. So let me just quickly give you the phone number again. 888-720-9677. 888-720-WNPR. You can call up about anything you want. But if you wanted to call up on this whole question of when in your childhood were you proud of yourself, that's a really interesting question, even though we're stealing it from Rachel Martin. All right, here's Doug in New Haven. Hi, Doug.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I was fascinated that you were talking about, when is the time that you are proud of yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a little clock that I keep on my desk that is a count-up timer and set to days, and it says on the top of it, when was the last time that you did something you were proud of? And whenever I do something that I feel particularly proud of, I reset it. And it's been wonderful having it. It both keeps you inspired to do stuff that you feel good about, and it also, I keep track of what it is that I felt good about when I changed the timer back. And I find it fascinating to go back over the list of things and see, what I thought that was really good about stuff that I did. It gives you an interesting perspective on how you're approaching life.
It also may reduce your fall risk because pride goeth before a fall. So you would know when your risk of falling was. In a way, what you're saying right now, to me, it illustrates the kind of double-edged nature of this whole bargain we're talking about. Because you can be proud of yourself because you did the right thing, right? Or you can be proud of yourself because you think you're so terrific. You do such great work. One thing that I feel like as somebody who hosts a radio show and writes newspaper columns and stuff like that, is I feel like I should be kind of careful with the pride thing. In fact, I think the people who work with me will say my default assumption is that I sucked, and that there's something, I could have done a lot better or whatever. To me, having a healthy combination of pride and humility. You should be proud of the times when you stood your ground and you stood on principle and you did the right thing, or you went out of your way to help somebody who needed help, or those are the kinds of things we should be proud of. But I think society sometimes urges us to be proud because, we're a superstar or something like that. And
Well, that's why I think it's good that for me to keep track of what I think is good about myself, you know, to not sort of necessarily buy into what everybody else is using as the measuring sticks for, you know, whether you're doing good or not. But what is it that, you know, I honestly can say I feel proud of doing? And in contrast, you'll always remember the stuff that you really.
All right, you're not supposed to say that.
You know, yeah, okay, sorry. But
it's a really good point. I mean, just taking the moment to reflect, taking the moment to notice, you know, and to notice what counted to you as pride is a useful exercise in and of itself. And I think also you could kind of combine it with Tony's wedding and say, you know, I was a little bit too much like Saruman, you know, and Saruman got too proud. And he wound up just taking the wrong side of things. So yeah, it sounds good. All right, let's go to Chip in Brantford. Hi, Chip. By the way, the number is 888-720-9677. Oh, I just read in the Isaac Moss report that Rachel Martin is going to have Harrison Ford on Wildcard very soon. So that's good news too. And I got some other good news, which we did have an F-bomb in the last. He didn't mean to do anything wrong. It just slipped out. But apparently we got rid of it, and that is good news. All right. Here we have Chip in Brantford. Hi, Chip.
Hey, how you doing, Colin?
Just fine.
Hey, this is a quick one. It seems the majority of the stories I hear on your not just your programs, but all of Connecticut Public Radio, are interviewing authors and talking about their books. And quite often I find myself, oh, geez, I want to read that. What am I reading now? Free the Beach, which is about Ned Cole and his work.
Oh, I remember all that. Yeah.
On your radio. So now I'm like, so why can't I go to Connecticut Public Radio after a program and order that book through you guys so you guys get a slice of the pie?
See, that might be so. I mean, Wirecutter and stuff like that. They have stuff like that where if you know they're unbiased in their ratings of things, but in fact, if you order the thing that they recommended, they get to wet their beak a little bit. But we're in enough trouble already here at Public Broadcasting. And I think the other question is, what would the link go to? Would it go to Amazon because there's some people who have real problems with Amazon? Would it go to in a way, what we should do is here's the name of the book. Here's the name of the author. Go to your independent bookseller or wherever it is you want to get books. But putting a hard link, a hot link into the copy, I think, is opening up a can of worms for us, probably. Although I like the idea of Public Radio wetting its beaks. We have to be really careful with that stuff. I mean, we have kind of a charter and a mandate and stuff like that. But I appreciate, first of all, Chip, thank you so much for listening and for being inspired by, inspired enough by what you hear, not just on this show, but other kinds of programming on Public Broadcasting, that you would want to go get the book. It's a very, very healthy instinct. And I think what we should do is, maybe there's a way that we could present information connected to the content on our shows without necessarily directing you to a commercial enterprise. I mean, I feel the same way, and this comes up from time to time. People often will say, where do you post the names of the songs that you play over the course of a show? And the answer to that typically is nowhere. We don't really post those things, and that's, to me, that's a greater oversight. Even I feel like with Chip's thing, with a little bit of effort, you can usually figure out how to get the book that we were talking about. Maybe we need to say it an extra time or two on the air, but it's usually there on the website too if you go to the individual episode postings. But the music, there really is no place where we tell people what music we're playing, and I think that's kind of a mistake because we work, especially me. We work really hard, and they're telling me something right now. We work really hard on picking out really good music. The music needs to be apropos of certain things, but it also just needs to be good. And we don't tell anybody what the songs are. All right, so and actually, people are saying this is the thing that needs to happen. I mean, people in the control booth are saying that too. So we do have to do a better job of explaining all that. So we'll work on that. Meanwhile, what else do I need to tell you? We're going to do a show on Wednesday about good taste. You might be thinking about current proposed renovations to the White House. because good taste also implies bad taste. And then we're not 100% sure, but what we're talking about right now is a show that we will tape on Thursday and air on Friday about Billy Joel. There's a 185-hour documentary about Billy Joel. Worth it, about Billy Joel on HBO. And it has really got me thinking a lot about how we, or perhaps how I decide what I think is cool, how I've thought about that all my life, and how that might be getting in the way of my enjoying and appreciating other kinds of culture on its own terms. But there's a lot of stuff to unpack with Billy Joel, including Billy Joel. You need to unpack Billy Joel. And so that's part of our plan for the week. I hope you'll stick around for that too. Thanks for listening today.